Hash, did ancient humans get high? What if I told you that your ancestors weren't that different from you, that thousands of years ago, people were actively seeking altered states of consciousness? Well, buckle up, because the answer to whether ancient humans got high is a resounding and often shocking yes. And the methods they used? They're far more sophisticated than you'd ever imagine. Let's start with the most obvious question. Why would ancient people want to get high in the first place? The answer reveals something fundamental about human nature. Ancient cultures weren't just surviving day to day. They were spiritual, they were curious, and they were actively searching for connection to something greater than themselves. Getting high was rarely about recreation, it was about transcendence. Here's where it gets fascinating. Archaeological evidence from some of the oldest civilizations on Earth shows intentional drug use dating back thousands of years. We're talking about 9,000-year-old evidence of opium use in the Mediterranean, pottery with traces of psychoactive plants, ritual spaces specifically designed for these experiences. This wasn't accidental. This was calculated, planned, and deeply meaningful to these cultures. Let's talk about psilocybin mushrooms first. These magic mushrooms have been used ceremonially for at least 3,000 years, possibly much longer. Cave paintings in Spain dating back 6,000 years show mushroom-like figures with consciousness-altering visual patterns around them. The Aztecs called them Teo, which literally means the flesh of the gods, and they didn't use them casually. These were reserved for priests, shamans, and spiritual leaders. But here's what most people get wrong. Indigenous cultures approached these substances with incredible reverence and structure. They weren't recreational in our modern sense. A shaman would spend months or years preparing for a ceremony. There were rules, protocols, and spiritual preparation. The experience was considered a conversation with the divine. Every detail mattered. Now, let's shift to the ancient Mediterranean world. The ancient Greeks had something called the Eleusinian Mysteries. This was one of the most important religious ceremonies in Greece, lasting over 2,000 years. Thousands of people traveled to Eleusis each year to participate. So what was at the center of this mystery? Well, that's the trillion-dollar question. Historians and archaeologists have debated this for decades. A team of researchers discovered something remarkable. The ceremonial drink served at these mysteries likely contained ergot fungus, which is the naturally occurring source of LSD. Yes, you heard that right. Ancient Greeks might have been the first people to discover and deliberately consume LSD, thousands of years before Albert Hofmann synthesized it in a Swiss laboratory. The ceremony involved the consumption of a special drink, a journey through a dark space, and then illumination. Sound familiar? That's a classic psychedelic experience. The evidence is persuasive. Ancient Greek texts describe the ceremony as producing visions, mystical insight, and a sense of union with the divine. They speak of fear, wonder, and transformation. These are the exact experiences that modern people report from psychedelic use. The Greeks didn't have the words for serotonin receptors, but they understood the profound effects of these substances. Let's move to ancient South America. The shamans of Peru and Ecuador have been using ayahuasca for at least 2,000 years, probably much longer. Ayahuasca is a brew containing DMT, one of the most powerful psychoactive compounds known to science. And here's the really mind-bending part. DMT occurs naturally in the human brain. Some scientists theorize it's released during near-death experiences or in the moments before death. Using ayahuasca essentially floods the brain with this compound, creating what users describe as contact with other dimensions, entities, and profound truths about existence. Archaeological evidence shows that South American cultures have been working with these plants for millennia. Plant remains have been discovered in ancient settlements. Spiritual practitioners have maintained unbroken lineages of knowledge about these substances for generations. They have incredibly specific rituals, diets, and preparations. This is sophisticated pharmacology disguised as spirituality. Now, we have to talk about cannabis. Archaeological evidence shows that ancient humans knew about cannabis at least 5,000 years ago. Scythian burial mounds in Central Asia contained cannabis seeds and residue. Chinese texts reference cannabis use over 4,000 years ago for both medicinal and spiritual purposes. Ancient Hindu texts mention cannabis as a sacred plant. These cultures didn't just discover cannabis by accident and decide to use it repeatedly. They actively cultivated it, valued it, and integrated it into their spiritual and medicinal practices. Here's the thing that connects all of this. Consciousness exploration wasn't some fringe activity in ancient cultures. It was often central to their spiritual systems. Shamans, priests, and spiritual leaders deliberately used these substances to access altered states that they considered sacred. They believed they were communicating with gods, ancestors, and the spiritual realm. Whether or not that's literally true is a different conversation, but what's undeniable is that ancient humans were scientifically sophisticated enough to identify, cultivate, and use powerful psychoactive compounds. This raises an uncomfortable question for modern Western culture. We've spent the last 50 years telling ourselves that drug use is a modern problem, that ancient humans were somehow more enlightened or disciplined, but the evidence suggests something different. Ancient humans got high. They did it intentionally, ritually, and systematically. They incorporated these experiences into their worldview, their spirituality, and their understanding of reality itself. The difference is that they understood something we've largely forgotten. Context matters. Set and setting matter. Intention matters. Whether used for spiritual insight, healing, or connection to community, ancient cultures approached consciousness alteration as a serious endeavor, not a casual party activity. Modern science is actually catching up to what ancient cultures always knew. Researchers are using psilocybin and other psychedelics to treat depression, anxiety, and PTSD with remarkable success rates. We're discovering that these substances can facilitate genuine psychological healing and spiritual insight. We're realizing that the ancient people weren't fooling themselves or simply getting high for entertainment. They were accessing something real, something profound, something that the human brain is apparently capable of experiencing. So, did ancient humans get high? Absolutely. They got high frequently, deliberately, and with great intention. They had strong reasons to do so. They had developed sophisticated knowledge about how to do so safely, and they integrated these experiences into the fabric of their cultures. In many ways, we're not discovering anything new with modern neuroscience and psychology. We're rediscovering what was lost when these practices were suppressed and criminalized. And perhaps there's something we can learn from that. Thanks for watching.